And do a quick round of introductions, because I said there's more complete bios on the table, and you can also find this online with the Earthkeeping Summit site. But we have Sister Christine Pratt, who's was Rural Life Coordinator for 25 years in the Diocese of Toledo, member of the Ursulines of Brown County community, and has been involved in an awful lot of food and hunger and land policy roles. And since we're here at Ohio State, she has a master's degree in community development in rural sociology, community development focus from here at Ohio State. We also have Alyssa Yoder-Mann, who's here, Sierra Club Conservation Coordinator for Central Ohio in the Clean Water campaign. And she has a Master's of Environment and Natural Resources from Ohio State. Also Rebecca Molino, who's here from Columbus Public Health, and she is running the Faith Community Climate Change Project at Columbus Public Health. And she was an EADS student here at Ohio State, recently graduated in Environment, Economy, Development, and Sustainability. So she's also an OSU alum. I was going to try this earlier. OH! Hey, there you go, Frog. And finally, Mark McLean, who's a community ambassador for HIP Cuyahoga, presently planting a church, the Growing Church, a Christian Experience in Cleveland. He's done a lot of work with environmental health in the Cleveland area. And, well, he just has a sociology bachelor's from Harvard and a law degree from Columbia, but we won't hold that against him. So anyway, we've got a rich set of panelists here, and one of the other things, the storytelling theme here really blossomed out of realizing that at previous summits, the part that was appreciated most was a chance to hear from people working in Ohio tell their stories of what they've been involved in. So this is a chance to do a little bit more of that. So we're going to start with Sister Christine. I think this is your slide that's here.
Yes.
And the microphone right there, if it's on.
Yes, no, yes. Hold it close, there we go. It's one of those ones you have to eat, which is a great segue into my beginning. A long time ago, many years ago, I was very much a part of the National Catholic Rural Life Board and activities, and we created a slogan called "Eating is a Moral Act." I added to it in my local work, "Eating is a moral act and an act of justice," because it has spiritual, social, economic, and political implications for all of us. In the rural community, when I went up north, I was in the Toledo Diocese there, and it was a matter when I came up there in 1984, that the farms were beginning to collapse. And of course, there was a lot of blame going on around it. And there were people in these cities who knew absolutely nothing about agriculture, except to say things like, farmers only work in October and April. I don't know what their problem is. Or they all go to Florida, or they're always complaining about the weather. Why is that? So I realized that I had a job ahead of me, first of all, ministering to the farmers who were losing their farms, and then secondly, a massive task of educating people about what really is involved in the agricultural system. So I decided to use the theme that I just said, but also I realized for a long time that agriculture, food, hunger, land, environment, they're all related. And so what I did was form a theme with a group of other farmers and others, that our theme was really building the relationship among land, food, and people. All of us are a part of the agriculture system, whether we are beginning of seeds all the way to what's on our tables. And so an education was begun for the city folk, children, adults, a lot of Catholic social teaching around that. So the challenge was, and I said we have like 5 minutes to do this presentation each, and this is a very complicated issue in agriculture and what we deal with in rural communities. But it was a matter of trying to bring rural and urban and suburban people together, for them to all see that our role, all of us, is to care for one another and to care about the earth because we do care about each other. Recognizing at the same time the complexity of the system, and especially the agricultural production system, that is both a challenge and requires us to call forth some moral questions, which I shared with some people today that I've been in the mix of doing, even with some of the leadership at Ohio State. In the past. I haven't had a chance to do it lately, but I'd be happy to do it again if needed. We talked about and looked at and recognized that the challenges were large-scale agriculture and smaller-sized agriculture, also organic and even CSAs. The conflict within rural communities that are surrounding those same issues are very prevalent and real. Global and local foods, the violence that is done to the earth and persons who are poor, and also how do we do peacemaking with the earth. So the whole area is much more complex of talking about agriculture and food and rural communities. So part of my job was trying to help to bring not only healing to that, but also to bring the challenge of Catholic social teaching, which, by the way, I got to share with Lutherans and Methodists and Presbyterians, United Church of Christ, every once in a while someone of the Jewish faith, and now I'm also involving some of the Islamic community with it as well, because we are all one in this struggle, every single one of us. And certainly land issues and environment issues, when you look at the violence being done around our world, it is violence to people and violence to the earth and our future, and the future of, I say our children and grandchildren, even though I don't have my blood children, I believe all children are my children. So that's where I come from on that. In the building of this and helping to do that, I then also looked at my religious community, which is in Brown County, Ohio. And we have been there since 1845. We are a dying community. There are only 23 of us left. And we have several acres of land that has been in agriculture since I came in 1845. As we were looking, we had closed our boarding school. We do have a small college called Chatfield College, which ministers to the Appalachian people and gives them a 3-year associate degree. We have one also in the inner city of Cincinnati, which gets them ready. People who have never been to college before, first generation, we get them ready to go on to a degree elsewhere. It's a liberal arts college, which they all desperately need. But we have farmland still. And we had a low-head dam on our property that was built during the 1930s to provide water for our mother house, our boarding school, and the village. Well, we finally got city water, but I want to go to the land first. So 25 years ago, same anniversary as our Earth Justice pieces here, I came home with all the knowledge one could have after 4 years in ministry. And just kidding, and but also came home with a new lens for our community to look at, which was our land. So what you have is a picture of a part of our land right there, which I want to talk to you about, because it is out in a rural area, St. Martin, Ohio, which is a very tiny, tiny town. It's part of Appalachia, and we, knowing that we could not provide really any other ministry local except our presence to the people in the community, which we have done all these years, and as we're a dying community, we knew that we were going to have to divest ourselves of the property eventually. So it took me a very long time, but the community in 2010 put all of our farmland in an easement, a farmland conservation easement, so that it will remain agriculture, farmland, in perpetuity when we're gone. It will still continue there. We are very proud to be called the Ursulines of Brown County. We have lived with the people of the land, and we felt what greater legacy could we leave them than what they have been a part of in our life, to continue honoring their love for the land, who they are, what they are, so that we could do that. Then we looked at the Lowhead Dam, which had been dammed up since the 1930s. It no longer was required after about 1990 because we got city water under requirements to do so. So we got a wonderful grant from Ohio EPA, who paid for most of it. The Lowhead Dam was taken down, all the toxicity was removed, all of that. Last year, 2015, well really it's July 1st of this year, we ended the project. As you can see, it's in the foreground. Our farmland is right beyond, and beyond that is our little church in the village. So this is truly our land. And the farmland is beyond it, part of our farmland. But now it has been returned to its original state of what it was in 1845. The wetlands are returned. It'll take 10 years for it to really reconnect its originality. But we are very proud of doing it, and one of the things now that I'm back in the Cincinnati area and back home at the Mother House is that I am inviting all kinds of people to come and see it and learn about it and why we do what we do and why we did what we did, and it's been a wonderful educational piece for people as well. But we as a community feel that it has lived out our commitment to care for the earth as it was given to us at the beginning. It is our responsibility to care for it, to give it back to God as God intended us to have it. And so with that, we continue that. I will invite you though, actually probably my time is up. Oh, wrap up, okay. I love how they have wrap up, okay. On October 23rd, Sunday, October 23rd, as you know, maybe you may not know, but this year, we're coming to the end of the year that Pope Francis called for the Year of Mercy. And so the St. Martin Deanery, the Catholic parishes of our deanery where we are located, we're going to do a little pilgrimage walk. We're calling the Walk of Mercy for the land and its people. And it's going to be on our property, and we will do it from the chapel, our chapel, to the farmland. We have a pioneer cemetery on our land where the original settlers are buried, who started that whole larger, not larger, but the community beyond us, but it was on our property when we were given the property, and we will have a direct descendant of the person who gave the land for the church in 1824, who will be a part of that. And then we will walk to the waterway, and then we'll walk to our cemetery where we have an archbishop buried, lay people, women religious, men and women, which will be a sign of where God calls us in the end, and back to chapel. But anyone is invited. It's from 3 to 5:30 in the afternoon on Sunday the 23rd. But it's the only one of its kind in our archdiocese where we're really doing a mercy walk for the land and its people. Thank you very much.
So this picture, I'm going to tell you a story about this picture. So this picture was taken This picture was taken in 1978, and it is at Tremont City. And so these are barrels, and these barrels were buried between 1976 and 1979. So there's a total of 51,500 of these barrels, each containing 55 gallons of hazardous waste. So we are talking about 3 million gallons of hazardous waste that were buried in 1976 in an unlined landfill in Tremont City, 3 miles upstream from Springfield City's well. And the Springfield well will pull about 12 million gallons of water every day. And not only is it on a well, but this well taps into the greater Miami aquifer. So this is the most productive aquifer in the United States. It's a sand and gravel aquifer. And it supports 50 million people for their water use, and it covers 13 counties in Southwest Ohio. So this is a really, really large aquifer. So it's about 250 feet deep. In some places, it's 2 miles wide. So we're talking about a really beautiful aquifer, highly functioning, and really highly quality water because it's filtered naturally by all the sand and gravel. So all these lovely barrels were decided to be built right there. So in 1983, citizens start to smell strange odors, see things coming off the runoff from the site. Surprise, surprise, their drinking quality is getting decreased. So the local citizens begin to organize. So through 1980s and 1990s, they begin to organize and demand a full investigation of this site be made. So all of the local officials are in agreement with the community. It's kind of the US EPA and the Ohio EPA that they have to work towards now. So finally, after all these years, in the late 1990s, the US EPA and Ohio EPA come out and say, we agree that the barrels are leaking and are affecting your drinking water. So just that statement alone took, until 1990s. So fast forward, the year 2002, US EPA Region 5 finally comes to a consent agreement. They say that they are going to hold the corporations responsible for the waste. They're going to hold them responsible for the remediation costs of the site. So they're going to hold the top 9 largest polluters. So after another 8 years, after many plans, studies, drafting, all sorts of stuff, finally in 2010, the US EPA released a report that formalizes that say, okay, we're gonna remediate this site. We're gonna take all of the barrels out, we're gonna remove it and clean it up, and it's gonna cost us $56 million. So the community is like, finally, great, it's 2010, we finally have this happen. 1 year later, the EPA, US EPA comes out and says, wait a second, we have a new plan. We agree to remove the barrels, but any waste that is left uncontained, so any waste that has leaked, we're not gonna remove it and we're not gonna treat it. We're just gonna leave it there. And because that cost us half the cost of the original plan. So this plan cost $28 million instead of the original plan of $56 million. So obviously the community is still upset. Marilyn Welker, who lives in the community, is fed up at this point. So it's 2012, and she gets organized, and she founds a local grassroots organization called People for Safe Water. So the next 3 years, she starts organizing like crazy. She campaigns around the issue. She gets people in the community to put yard signs in their yard. They're making phone calls to the representatives. They're sending emails. Everybody's getting fired up. And there's so much tension brewing that in August of 2015, the US EPA holds a meeting in Clark County. Maryland gets 800 people to a meeting. An EPA meeting, 800 people show up. That is unheard of. I would love to have numbers like that, but I am not Maryland. So, at this meeting, citizen after citizen go up to the podium. They're unanimously voicing the same concern. What are you going to do to protect our water? All of the local officials are in agreement with the community as well. So when you have 800 people show up at an EPA meeting, people start listening. So that includes Senator Portman and Senator Brown start listening and acting on their behalf. They managed to secure a meeting with the US EPA Region 5. So 9 representatives from Clark County go to Chicago to meet with representatives of US EPA Region 5, who I will also let you know is the same district, District 5, is also coincidentally is in charge of Flint, Michigan. So there's a lot of speculation around who they're not doing the right thing. Is Ohio going to be the next Flint? So, so they have the meeting with the region, and they continue with their fight. In January 2016, I meet Marilyn. She shares her story with me, which I just shared with you, and I met her at her Sierra Club retreat. So we felt very compelled to follow her actions and meet her energy with this issue at the Sierra Club. So we start to hold some meetings, and we send out a statewide action alert through our email system. And it was a pretty strategic email because there was so much attention on Flint, Michigan, and this EPA District 5 that we got an incredible amount of response. Because these are the same people that are responsible for Flint are responsible for our drinking water. So in May 2016, coincidentally, a few months later, we all know that Susan Heldman of the US EPA, the manager for District 5, resigned because of her not taking action with Flint. So in May of 2016, the Army Corps gets involved, and they say that they're going to make a remediation plan. And so they say that they want an addition of a physically stabilizing engineered waste cell. So basically they're saying, okay, all the waste that's there, we're going to put a liner in and we're going to treat it. So it's better than the US EPA's, but it's not quite where the citizens of Clark County want it to be. So this is still an issue that is in motion. So this is where we're at right now. And I wanted to share this story with you. You know, obviously it doesn't have a happy ending yet. We don't know what the outcome is, but it's really a story of how you can become a Maryland. It takes one person to, you know, to attend the meeting, plan the meeting, make the phone call, put a yard sign in, anything you can to really pay attention to the issues that are going on in your community and how you can support it in your own way. Thanks. So my name is Rebecca Molino, and I work for Columbus Public Health. I do climate change outreach to African American and Latino faith communities. So I'm bringing that very specific perspective as a story. It's been great to hear all the other stories. There's so many topics of the environment that we can talk about. And mine specifically is going to be looking at that health connection. So my work is funded by the Public Health Institute, and it focuses on education to protect health and improve lives of the Columbus community. That's the focus of public health, is looking at those large-scale health issues that will affect everyone. So one way that the health department decides where to focus their efforts on to improve health is to look at the top threats and hazards to Franklin County. And it's really interesting because 5 of the top 10 hazards that we're looking at for Franklin County are related to the environment. So they include tornadoes, dam failures, flooding, severe winter weather, and severe summer weather. And so those hazards are actually things that they're already currently most concerning for the health of our people, but they're also things that are going to become more severe and more dangerous in climate change as we see more of the effects of climate change. So my role and task is to make the connection between these threats and how they'll affect our health and our communities. So climate change is obviously that big picture, and there's so many different areas that we could focus on. And my task now is to go into the faith community and pull out those small stories of what resonates with their community and how we can target one specific health concern and tie it to climate change and come up with those solutions. We always want to end with the solutions. So my short story that I'm going to share is a story that has come out by working with African American and Latino faith communities in Columbus. Starts with the statistic that 19.5% of Black children deal with asthma, while 12.2% of white children deal with asthma in Ohio as a whole. And so asthma, it can be a monthly, weekly, or daily concern for families. It's something that I deal with. It's something so scary to watch a child struggle to breathe, and that's something that families and communities can definitely gather around. And so not only is that scary health risk, but it also places a heavy burden on parents to schedule regular doctor's appointments, to pay for medication, or to make those emergency hospital visits. That's something that certainly everybody can, relate to being a huge issue. Asthma stems from genetics, but it is also can stem from exposure to air pollution, and it can also be that combination of both. And so that's where I come in with that climate change link, to make sure that we understand that air pollution, that same pollution that can cause those asthma attacks, is also affecting everybody else in the changing climate. So thinking about that story and thinking about how that relates to the communities that I'm working in, one of the solutions that we can suggest for the Columbus community in particular, and everywhere else really, is looking at the tree canopy. Trees are something that can certainly help impact that air quality. It helps with urban heat island and helps take in some of those pollutants. And the map that Columbus has created in recent years, I want to say it was 2 years ago, the study showed that the lowest percentage of tree canopy in Columbus is also in those low income and minority neighborhoods. So that's a direct link, that's a direct solution, that's a direct act that we can work on, and we can come together as a faith community or as a neighborhood to have that direct solution. And obviously that's just a small part and small role, but it's just the
That way that I can come in and do the education to make that connection between health and between the environment that we're living in. And so as we kind of mentioned in the opening, as Sarah mentioned, I believe, it's easy to get caught up in the debate and the politics and waiting for legislation, but my focus is really trying to think about those solutions as small scale as they can be that we can do now to make that difference between our in our neighborhood and in our faith communities.
My name is Mark McLean, and I was born Baptist. And I don't know of any Baptist preacher who can speak for just 5 minutes. A little latitude, please. That's not the picture. I think I want to start with the can you see this picture good? Yeah.
What?
Microphone. What does this picture say to you? Think about it. I was on the way from Detroit to Cleveland one day, and there's a little small town called Molino. It's it's like a stagecoach stop. And the lake shoreway is right downtown in Little Pier. And I always stop when I pass there. When I go on the beach, I look around, and water, I really love water. So I spend as much time there as possible. That's Lake Erie in the background. And I look at the water, and it just gives me energy. But as you see, there's something in this picture that's strange. And that's the fact, I walked on the beach, and there were dead fish all along the beach. This is not the only one. Now this, if you think about it as a story, the body of water is America. And it's beautiful. And there's so many advantages to having that, but there's a dead fish. And people on the beach walk up and down the beach and they ignore the dead fish. Now, if the body of water is America, then what is the fish? People. Trayvon Martin, Crutcher, all of the people who were shot and killed. So that fish is a sign that water is disease. That water needs fixing. And in this country, you cannot just look at America without looking at the effects of America. Dead fish, dead bodies. And this is what I look at. I was really hard and I was late, but I was listening to the speaker. And she did a lot of work for me. Then she came on and did more work for me. I was concerned that you would not understand that there's a connection between what's happening in this country and environmental. The issues are not separate. They're all born out of the same problem, the same spirit, the same energy. I believe most of us in this room believe in the Holy Spirit. And there's some things that happened in my life to make me experience the Holy Spirit firsthand. But that's not the only spirit there is. See, this black people came to this country not on their own volition, but through someone's greed. And environmental problems didn't pop up by themselves. They came from someone's greed. So we have to realize that when we look at these problems, and they're all connected. My first experience with environmental issues was when I was a little kid. I I was born in Cleveland, but I was raised partly by my grandfather. And he was a farmer. And I remember clearly him standing in his field, looking around, and sticking his face up in the air and smelling the air. And he could tell so much about what was happening with his crops, whether rain was coming, whether it wasn't. He could tell just by being there and experiencing that. And at the age of 5, I always wanted to be a lawyer. I said, I'm going to be a lawyer. And so I went on and became a lawyer, and I ran into environmental law. And I started closing loops. And it said wrap up, I don't know how to rap. But the point is, there is a connection, and I believe in a few minutes we're going to talk about things you can do, things we would like you to do. But really, look at this country today and think about what you can do. The greatest commandment of all is love. And so you must act in love, and acting in love, you can really address some of these problems. Boy, I'm sure.
We're trying to wrap this session in 15 minutes, which tells you the timeline we've got. So I'm not going to let you all say your last bits until we've got about 3 minutes left. What I want to do is be able to open it up for some comments, reflections, additional pieces that we want to add in, or questions that you have for the panelists here. I'd like to do that quickly, is to make sure we get some dialogue going here. And as you reflect on any of the things you hear, that can add to our final closing points from each of you as you share different ways that people can connect. That sounds good. So we have 2 microphones. One is the one in my hand, and the other is this wireless. Well, this one might even work better. Yeah.
Okay, very quick. That's one to ask Mark. When you think of urban growers, especially the efforts of African Americans to get in the game, and when you look at the food deserts, what's been the struggle, or what policy stuff we can do to ensure that African American or community-based farmers get access and opportunity to kind of get more in the movement?
Thank you, Tony, my cousin. One of the big problems is the fact that the market. You have to know who your market is and know the tendencies of your market. There are a lot of people who don't know the real benefit of fresh food. I started a garden in the backward playground, and I used to watch the people walk back and forth, and I would stop every person who walked past the garden. I said, once you come and garden with me, we'll give you seeds, we'll give you water, we'll help you with it. Here's free food right here. And one lady would walk past, and I gave her my pitch, and she said, no, I don't like the way food tastes when it comes from the garden. And she walked on down a couple of blocks to Save-A-Lot, which is a cheap grocery store, sells lots of processed food. And she bought a can of pork and beans. And she walked back, and she had the can of pork and beans. And of course, we know that the pork and bean can is lined with BPA that causes diabetes and heart disease, and et cetera. And she had her receipt in her hand that also had BP on it. So, she's in essence killing herself and her family when there's fresh food right there. The other problems has to do with cleaning off the land, so the food won't grow contaminated. And but in Cleveland, there's lots of property that's laying dormant and vacant. So we just have to convince the government that the highest and best use of property like that to grow. You know, you can train people. In fact, the church which I'm planning, that's all a part of the process. We plan to actually put a church in a hoop house. And I had come across a Qigong master who has taught me to really sense energy. And I found that plants give off energy, positive energy. And to teach people that and how to grow their own food gives them a sense of independence, a sense of opportunity. It changes neighborhoods. Now that could be part of your plan.
Thanks.
I have too much to say. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. I graduated from a college whose motto was having light, we pass it on to others. And that's been my whole life. I worked in healthcare, and I grew up in my grandparents' house at 96 and Miles in Cleveland. And we were self-sufficient gardening. I was born in '39, and here I am at the age of 77. We need to spread this knowledge to the outside world and elect progressive people.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Nicole. I'm from Cleveland as well. My main question is for Rebecca in regards to the climate change in the communities that you're working with. What do you think are the biggest challenges or concerns that you have from Latino and African American communities when it comes to climate change? What are their, I guess, biggest concerns?
Yeah, well, I think part of my story is that asthma connection. I think one of the challenges been kind of the politics around the phrase climate change. A lot of people that doesn't resonate with them very well. Some of the African American communities, some of the churches that I've spoken with have mentioned the fact that that their congregation members don't have a strong connection with the environment. Living in the urban areas of downtown Columbus, they associate being outside with possible crime and possible danger. And so I think that even just that first challenge of making the connection of a healthy environment and being outside as part of your indoor health, and like you said, that connection of not liking the taste of food that comes from a garden, just making the connection of the environment and health and climate change and how it's going to affect your life, even if you are staying inside, kind of a thing. So that I think is the biggest challenge of even just making that non-politicized connection.
All right. One more. Just one? Okay.
Let's see. My name is Susan, and Alyssa, thank you so much. Thank you all for what you've shared with us. I'm thinking about it would have cost a lot less than $56 million to have taken care of the barrels of hazardous waste in the first place. And I just am overwhelmed with the sense of greed and corporate irresponsibility. And I just wonder if there's any sense of how we as people of faith can begin to affect corporate leaders, that they can still make money and also be responsible.
Elect the right people.
I'm not sure, I don't know if any other panelists have any ideas on that, but that is a tough one. And it starts with your dollar, buy from corporations that support the values that you do. I buy organic food and I choose to pay more for it because that's the kind of farm that I want to see being grown. That's the kind of future that I want to see. Like at the Sierra Club, we are very careful with the money that we invest in, and so all of our retirement plans do not invest in plans that are associated with fossil fuels. So everything, probably that you buy really needs to be scrutinized.
I think in terms of the faith community, I have found in my many years of doing this with the faith community of all different kinds, but particularly the Catholic community, I think that it starts with us realizing ourselves and helping others to frame these conversations within a moral framework. Based in scripture, I know the different Christian denominations have a justice teaching. It's differently done within each church, within each denomination, and other denominations also. But I think I have found that it's too quick for people to politicize it all. Yeah. And my line to them is, long before it became a political issue, it's a moral issue. And that's where our ground is. And I think that we have allowed the political realm to steal it from us, and we follow them instead of demanding that they follow us, whatever our tradition is on this. So I really think that within our churches, whether we have pastors who are with us or not, or whether in our groups of prayer and gathering, the courage to bring these issues to the fore as a moral issue. And all of them are connected, absolutely. I don't care what the issue is, it rolls right around to all the others, and I know he's going to put more than wrap up in a minute, so here we go.
Yeah, and I would just add that there's a quote I use a lot from Gus Speth, who's sort of the environmentalist, who says, used to think that climate and pollution and biodiversity were the big issues, and now he realizes after many years of working on science and policy that it's pride, apathy, and greed that are really the big ones. And he says, you know what? Science doesn't really do pride, apathy, and greed, but faith communities do pride, apathy, and greed. So especially for you clergy in the audience, this will preach, right? This is what we should be preaching about, right? This is a matter of greed, and I think seeing it in those moral terms and hearing that from our spiritual leaders is particularly important to be able to frame it in that way more broadly. Yeah, thank you. So maybe as a way to, it'll preach, well, this is your last moment. Everybody had prepared a few recommendations of ways that you can engage, and we'll close with kind of sharing each of those.
My three recommendations were this, based on what I've done. Number one, in this case, probably just a reminder to all of us in this room, but I think we need to be reminded, and I think we need to constantly develop an attitude of attentiveness and gratitude. We seem to forget very easily. I mean, I'm always amazed when I pray over a meal at a restaurant and someone will come up and say, I haven't done that for a long time. Thank you for reminding me. And so many families don't even gather around the table anymore to even thank you for the food. So I think becoming daily attentive to what is going on around us, the air we breathe, when we were reminded this morning about that contemplative hour, that's the time to be aware of breathing in the air, of attentive to what's happening around us, who our people are, in silence and gratitude. And who are all the people who are affected by my actions and our actions, here and abroad, everywhere, because we are all connected. What I do, I used to teach people all the time, affects millions and millions of people. Turning on the tap water affects millions of people. And then who is not eating so that I can eat, and why is this a moral and social and economic issue? The second thing is that I think, with the agricultural production particularly, which is such a challenge with chemicals and all the rest, and the numbers of farmers who get sick because of what's happening, that they sometimes don't claim that's what it is because they're fighting for their livelihood. I mean, it's such a complex issue. But I think as much as we can support local food systems and go to our grocery stores and demand that there be local food here and supporting those groups, and looking at this because there are integrated production efforts to preserve farmland through conservation easements. If you know farmers, many of their children do not want to farm anymore, but there are others who will take some of it for the enterprise of smaller and local. So encourage that both in policy and in inviting and supporting locally yourself. And thirdly, I am a huge advocate for addressing the political policies at all levels of what we're talking about. I've been doing it for years. I always say I could never sell a car or jewelry, but I can sell the gospel. They may not buy it, but I will sell it. And I think that we have a responsibility as faith people to take the message of the gospel to the legislature, to Congress, wherever we need to. We have a responsibility that God gave us this earth, so we are called in partnership with God and in care for one another to protect the precious resources of our earth with the earth and with every person living and to come after us.
Thank you.
So, at the Sierra Club, we don't go out looking for issues to solve. We have our members tell us about issues, right? So we meet people like Marilyn, and so the big takeaway, is that be your own, become Marilyn, just get involved with everything that you can do. Because the Sierra Club is really truly dedicated to grassroots organization. And so we are there to really provide that administrative support, that infrastructure that can send emails, that can create social campaigns. And I'm the other person on the end of that petition, that mindless petition that annoys you in your email box, but I'm the one who's like, yay, I have 100 people respond. And I'm the one who takes it to the EPA and it shares all your voices with them. So it does mean something, that petition means something. That sign in your yard, the phone call you make, it really truly does mean something, because that's the way that the US policy was made, that public participation is how we shape our future. So just engage in it, do what you can. I know we can all do something because we came here today, and just do it.
My takeaway today is going to be a specific call. So we saw that poll earlier, and we raised our hands from where we were located, coming from in Ohio. So my call will be to those Central Ohio, maybe Columbus parishes, to invite me to your congregation. Invite me to start that conversation with your members about what issues from the environment they face in their daily lives, and then so that we can come up together with that education and with those solutions so that we can make healthier lives for your members. That would be my first takeaway. And then also just if you're not in that Central Ohio location, or if you are and you just care more, I just think engage your members, have that conversation. Make sure people realize that their neighbors are also sharing some of those same issues. And maybe they've found other solutions, or maybe together they can do more. They can carpool, or they can just be that support for each other. So have that conversation with your congregation members about the environment. And with that, like I had said earlier, there isn't necessarily always that strong connection with the environment. So look at your neighborhood, plan a walk, plan something to get people outside to start that connection, to start those conversations. And then lastly, I think just in the nature of today and what we're trying to do here, share with me what you know of your congregation members and what resonates with them, with your neighborhood, with your community, for climate change, and just share with each other. And here definitely today to listen and learn and collaborate.
Thank you. You said in your presentation that sometimes hard for...
What?
Can you hear?
No.
Okay. You said sometimes it's hard for you to get through to the Black community. I explained it to them, one of the ways I explained it to them like this: if you have children and your children go to school with a stomach full of Fruit Loops because healthy food is not available in your neighborhood, they get to school and they can't concentrate. They can't concentrate, they can't learn. They can't learn, they can't graduate, can't get a job, can't get a job to stand on the corner. It snowballs with one simple thing. And I guess the question was, what would I want you all to do? I don't want you to get angry. Get very angry. Not mad, but get angry at the things that are happening in this world today. And they pass it on as just common day occurrences. They give explanations which don't make sense, and you don't think about just like thinking about that fish that's there with sand. And another thing, Christianity, in my opinion, is really about relationships. So you know, 11 o'clock on Sunday morning is probably the most segregated hour in this country. There needs to be some exchange between faith, between churches. I looked at the website, and there was a picture of a church going on retreat. And I looked at each and every face, and all the faces were white. We have to change the way we think, the way we socialize. This social segregation will never do this country any good, and we won't progress. So you have to change the way you think, change the way you act, change the way you do things. And when you make that change, you have to change your own house before you can change the world.
So we have one last thing we want to do before lunch, and I'd like you to ask you to join me in thanking the panel. I'm going to ask Carol Jean Willey to come up and join me. Yeah, if you guys want to head on down, you can do that now.